Let me start by asking you this. When was the last time you felt truly angry? Maybe it was a flash of frustration, or maybe it was a deep, simmering rage. Now, what did you do with that anger? Did you let it out, bury it, or did you feel guilty for even feeling it at all? Hi, beautiful people, and welcome back to The Empowered. Today, we're diving into a topic that's as complex as it is powerful. Anger. Often misunderstood, anger, let's face it, has a negative reputation. But what if I told you that anger isn't the enemy? In fact, it can be one of your greatest allies when approached with mindfulness and intention. In this episode, we're exploring how to transform anger into a force for good, how to use it to set boundaries, heal past wounds, and ignite meaningful change in your life. I'll be sharing personal insights along with the wisdom from some incredible thought leaders to help you see anger in a new light. Before we dive in, I'd love for you to introduce yourself in the comments below. Tell me, where are you tuning in from? Share a little bit about your journey, and let's build this beautiful community together. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the future episodes. I'm beyond grateful and excited to be in this space with you today. I really needed to step into the space of empowerment and to share my thoughts with you today. So with no further ado, let's dive in. I'm sure if you found yourself here in this space with me, you've struggled with anger at some point in your life. Maybe it's a feeling that's been bubbling under the surface, or maybe it's something that exploded in ways you didn't expect. For me, anger has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. At times, it's felt like it was taking over, an emotion I didn't fully understand and often didn't know how to deal with it. But here's what I've learned. Anger isn't something to fear or suppress. It's a messenger, a powerful force that, when understood, can become one of the most transformative tools in our emotional toolkit. And that's what we're diving into today, how to turn anger into an ally rather than an enemy. Let's begin by unpacking what anger is. So often we label anger as a negative emotion, something destructive, something to avoid or suppress. But here's the thing, anger itself isn't inherently bad. It's a natural human response, a signal from our inner world that something feels off or out of alignment. It's like an alarm system letting us know when our boundaries have been crossed or our needs aren't being met. But why does anger feel so overwhelming at times? For many of us, it's because we weren't taught how to understand or process it. Maybe you grew in a household where anger wasn't allowed, where it was seen as disrespectful or dangerous. Or maybe you experienced the opposite, where anger was expressed so explosively that it felt chaotic and unsafe. Either way, these early experiences shape how we relate to anger as adults. For me, anger was something I didn't always know how to handle. There were times when I suppressed it, afraid it would hurt my relationships, and other times where I babbled over, leaving me feeling out of control. But the more I explored this emotion, the more I've realized that anger isn't the enemy. It's our relationship with anger that makes the difference. Dr. Gabor Maté, whose work we've explored in past episodes, has a powerful insight here. He explains that suppressed anger doesn't just disappear, it gets stored in the body. Over time, this can contribute in chronic stress, emotional numbness, and even physical illness. In his book, When the Body Says No, he shares how unresolved anger can weaken the immune system and heighten inflammation, making us more susceptible to illness. This isn't just about emotional well-being, it's about our overall health. So what if we could shift our perspective on anger? Instead of seeing it as something to fear or to suppress, what if we saw it as an ally? What if we treated it as a guide helping us to understand what we need to address or change in our life? That's the invitation I want to extend to you today. To start this shift, let's get curious about our anger. The next time you feel it rising, pause and ask yourself, what is this anger trying to tell me? What boundary might be crossed here? What unmet need is this emotion pointing me toward? These simple questions can help us move from reacting to reflecting, turning anger into a tool for self-discovery rather than a source of pain. In this next chapter, we'll dive deeper into the process and explore how mindfulness and somatic practices can help us engage with anger in a healthier, more constructive way. Anger is one of those emotions that I've struggled with deeply in the past. And if I'm being honest, it's something I still work on every single day. Just this morning, I woke up from a dream feeling angry. I don't even remember the details of the dream, but the feeling was so vivid, like it had seen simmering beneath the surface and decided to bubble up while I was asleep. It was one of these emotions that reminded me I'm still in the process. I'm still figuring it out. And I think a lot of us can relate to that tension between wanting to present ourselves as someone who has it all together, while underneath there's this inner dialogue, this work we're still doing. For me, anger has often been tied to situations when I felt powerless or misunderstood. Growing up, anger wasn't something I knew how to express safely. I would either hold it in, trying to avoid conflict at all costs, or it would explode in ways that left me feeling ashamed. And as a mother, I found that anger can sneak up on me in unexpected ways, like when I'm trying to juggle too much or when I realize I haven't given myself the space to rest or recharge. But here's what I've learned. Anger isn't the problem. It's what we do with it that matters. When I woke up angry this morning, I decided to pause and ask myself, what is this anger really about? What am I not addressing in my life that's surfacing now in this dream? And you know what? The answers weren't simple, but they were revealing. I realized that I'm still holding on to some pressure to be perfect, to appear like I've got it all together, when in reality, I'm a work in progress. And that's okay. Recognizing this allowed me to shift my perspective. Anger wasn't attacking me. It was trying to show me something I needed to address. If you've ever felt like anger is this uncontrollable force, try seeing it as a mirror. When it shows up, it's reflecting something back to you. Maybe a boundary that needs to be set or a truth that's been ignored. This morning, my anger was showing me that I need to give myself permission to be messy, to not have it all figured out. If you're feeling anger today, I invite you to ask, what is this anger trying to teach me? Write it down if it helps. Sometimes just acknowledging the emotion without judgment is the first step towards understanding it. Psychologist Dr. Harriet Lerner, author of The Dance of Anger, emphasizes that anger is a signal. It often arises when something we value is threatened, our boundaries, our sense of justice, or our self-worth. Anger tells us where change is needed, whether it's in our external circumstances or within ourselves. Now that we've explored the meaning of anger and its connection to boundaries, let's talk about how to work with it in a practical, constructive way. Anger doesn't have to overwhelm or control us, nor does it need to be suppressed or ignored. When approached with curiosity and care, anger can become a tool for personal growth and action. Here's some practical ways to engage with your anger and use it as an ally rather than an enemy. When anger arises, our instinct is often to react. But what if we paused instead? Mindful observation allows us to step back and notice the anger without judgment. You might ask yourself, what is this anger trying to tell me? Is it signaling a boundary that's been crossed or a need that's not being met? By observing rather than reacting, we can begin to uncover the wisdom behind the emotion. I recently stumbled upon a TED Talk by Jude Wijesekera. I'm definitely not saying this right. However, in this incredible TED Talk, she presents anger as a teacher and a guide, a force that, when understood and harnessed, can lead to meaningful change in our lives. So, drawing inspiration from her insights, let's explore some of her actionable strategies to make anger your ally. One of the simplest yet most effective tools Jude emphasizes is the power of naming the emotion. When you acknowledge and name your anger, saying, "I feel angry," you create a moment of pause. This simple act engages the rational part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, and helps calm the reactive amygdala. It's a way of saying to yourself, this is what I'm feeling and it's okay. This practice isn't about suppressing the anger. It's about creating enough space to observe it without being overwhelmed by it. The next time you feel anger building up, take a deep breath and simply name it. I feel angry because. You'll find it surprising how much clarity this brings. Jude suggests that anger often arises as a signal, a red flag pointing to something deeper. When we ask, what does my anger want to teach me? We shift from reacting to reflecting. This question helps uncover the unmet need or boundary violation underlying the emotion. For example, let me share a moment from my life. One morning, I was rushing to drop off my daughter at school. The traffic was unbearable, and every few minutes someone would cut me off or horn impatiently. I felt the anger bubbling up. It was that overwhelming frustration of being late, feeling out of control, and having my morning spiral into chaos. But instead of letting the anger consume me, I paused and asked myself, what is this anger trying to teach me? What I realized was that my anger wasn't about the traffic. It was about how overwhelmed I had been feeling that week, juggling so many responsibilities without taking a moment to breathe. It was a signal that I needed to slow down, not just in that moment, but overall, and create some space for myself to manage the chaos more calmly. This simple act of reflection turned my anger into a lesson about self-care. It reminded me that anger often isn't about the immediate situation. It's a call to pay attention for something deeper. Anger is energy. It needs to move through your body. Jude talks about the importance of releasing anger physically and prevent it from being suppressed. This doesn't mean lashing out to others, but finding healthy, intentional ways to let energy out. Here's some examples that are inspired from her approach is that you can tighten your fists or jaws just for a few seconds and then release. Physical release can help increase the tension anger creates in your body. Breathing techniques, practice deep intentional breathing such as inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, and inhaling for 4 counts. This calms the nervous system and helps regulate emotions. Movement. Go for a walk, dance, or even shake out your hands and feet. Movement can be incredibly grounding when you're feeling overwhelmed. Journaling is another tool that Jude highlights as a way to externalize anger. By putting it into paper, you can give your anger a voice and explore what's it trying to tell you. Think of its dialogue with your anger that rather than the battle against it. Write a letter to your anger, asking it questions like, why are you here? What do you need from me? Then let your anger respond as if it's a separate voice. You might be surprised by the insights you uncover. Journaling, has been a great guiding light in my whole healing journey. And I cannot stress this enough, how you can really get to understand more things and get a better sense of self through it. One of Jude's most profound points is that anger isn't something to fear or fight against. It's something to embrace with compassion. When we reframe anger as an ally, we shift our mindset from seeing it as a problem to viewing it as a guide. Ask yourself, what is my anger protecting or advocating for? Often anger arises something we deeply care about, like fairness, respect, or safety feels threatened. By approaching anger with curiosity and compassion, we can better understand its purpose and use it to advocate for our values. I've started using these practices in my own life, and they've been transformative. Just this morning, I felt a wave of anger rising after an interaction with someone close to me. Instead of reacting, I paused and named the emotion. I feel angry. I asked myself, what is this anger wanting to teach me? That simple act of reflection turned my anger into a lesson about self-care. It reminded me that anger often isn't just about the immediate situation. It's a call to pay attention to something deeper. As I've worked through my relationship with anger, I've realized that it's often in the in-between phase of the healing journey where old patterns try to creep back in. These are the moments when my past ways, the ones that no longer serve me, try to present themselves solutions to current challenges. It's as though my higher self feels shaken by these outdated practices and beliefs, even though I know deep down they don't align with who I'm becoming. One powerful realization I've had is that these hardwired beliefs don't need to define me anymore. Instead of fighting them or trying to push them away, I've learned to witness them, almost like I'm watching them play on a screen. This practice, inspired by Jose Silva visualization techniques, has been transformative for me. Silva's methods involve imagining a mental screen in front of you where you can protect and observe thoughts or feelings without judgment. So now when anger or old belief pops up, maybe it's the urge to snap back at someone, or the thought that I need to overextend myself to please others. I picture this on a screen. I acknowledge it without judgment, as though I'm simply observing it from a distance. This allows me to create space between myself and the reaction. By witnessing these old patterns rather than being consumed by them, I've learned to approach my feelings with more compassion and clarity. It's not about erasing them, but about understanding the roots and choosing a path that aligns with the version of myself I'm working to become. Accepting yourself and creating a compassionate love language with yourself are among the most transformative experiences I've learned. Anger, when approached with this mindset, can become a tool for self-understanding rather than a force we fear or fight against. One of the first steps in this journey is to practice gratitude for the signal. Trust me, I know this might sound crazy. Practicing gratitude for anger. But yes, thanking your anger for showing up can completely shift your perspective. Instead of viewing it as a problem, you begin to see it as a guide. When anger arises, try saying, "Thank you, anger, for showing me where I need to pay attention." This small act of gratitude can soften the edges of the emotion and create a moment of mindfulness that allows you to explore it further. For me, the shift has been so profound. And as I woke up this morning feeling so angry, I decided to lean into this practice. Instead of suppressing or judging the anger, I acknowledged it and I thanked it for showing me something within myself that needed attention. This allowed me to reframe the narrative entirely. Instead of thinking, "Why am I feeling this way?" and talking to myself with a very judgmental way, I thought, "What can this feeling teach me?" They say that where you put your energy shapes your day and ultimately your life. And let me tell you, this morning gave me every reason to go down a negative cycle. Anger tried to take over when the day started with a few curveballs. I was taking my younger daughter to her school, and on the way to my second drop-off, my car decided to die. There I was, stranded, trying to figure out how to take my older daughter to school on time. Eventually, I had to hail a taxi, drop her off, and then take another taxi back home. I could feel the frustration bubbling up, the inconvenience, the disruption, the stress. I had every reason to believe this was going to be a bad day. But in that moment, I caught myself. I realized I had a choice. I could let this frustration guide my day, or I could shift my energy and focus. It wasn't easy, but I decided to completely change the inner conversation. When I got home, instead of spiraling into a cycle of anger and negativity, I paused. I lit a candle, grounded myself in the peaceful rituals that bring me comfort, and chose to reclaim the energy of my day. And here I am now, sitting in this empowered space we've created together, sharing this episode with you. This moment reminded me that it's not about avoiding anger or frustration. They're part of life. It's about how we respond to those feelings. By shifting my focus and intentionally choosing practices that ground me, I was able to step out of the cycle of negativity and into this beautiful state and place we've created here. Anger and frustration may knock at the door, but we don't have to invite them and say, stay. We can acknowledge their presence, thank them for the signal, and then choose a different path. It's not always easy, but it's a practice worth building. The next time you're faced with a frustration situation, try asking yourself, where do I want to put my energy today? You might be surprised at how powerful the shift can be. So as we close this episode, I want to leave you with this powerful image. Think of anger as a 4-year-old child who doesn't yet know how to handle its feelings. You have a choice. You can let that child sit on the driver's seat and take control, steering you into chaos. Or you can pause, take a breath, and gently guide that child to the passenger seat while you take the wheel and drive where you need to go. Trust me, I've been there. Someone who didn't know how to handle anger, letting it take over and lead me to places I didn't want to go. But here I am today, sharing my journey with you, including my own moments of anger in this very morning. And yet, I've chosen to show up in the sacred space we've created together, because this is where we grow, reflect, and empower ourselves to handle life's challenges with grace. Before you go, I'd love you to take a moment to introduce yourself in the comments below. Share a bit of your journey, your experiences, or even what resonated with you in this episode. It truly helps foster this beautiful community we've built together. And if you haven't already, please hit subscribe. It's a simple way to help me continue creating this empowered space for all of us. Thank you for being here, for listening, and stepping into this journey with me. I love you all, and always remember, you have the power to create a life of meaning and purpose. Until next time, take care and stay empowered.